And this conference was organized. Yes, and the other partners, of course, I was going to mention them now. This conference is organized in partnership with the National Foundation of Civil Society and also the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Estonia. And also with the financial support of the Europe for Citizens program of the European Union. So to all of them on your behalf, we say thank you. This conference is in fact part of a series of activities which focuses on a variety of issues with great relevance to Europe as it tries to grasp the fundamental components of the new international situation and anticipate the impact this emerging order will have on its own future and long-term interests. The issue of refugees is part of this effort, as the phenomena has gained in magnitude and scope, and has become a social issue in most European countries, and a subject of debate, and unfortunately also sometimes a matter of discord within communities. Many international documents, guidelines, and resolutions have been adopted to regulate this flow of people. Many initiatives have also been launched to tackle the issue at its roots, with various development programs and financial support directed to the countries of origin in an attempt to improve the living conditions of the local population and dampen the lure of migration. The result, unfortunately, is an increase in numbers of migrants who accept all kinds of difficulties, including the ultimate sacrifice, in an attempt to reach their destination. Climate refugees, economic refugees, security refugees, and many others have become part of the political scene, and their situation a subject of heated debates, as we have seen in many European elections, particularly the French one most recently. Faced with the challenge and being one of the main destinations targeted by migrants and asylum seekers, Europe is trying to charter a common course for itself as a union and for its member states to rekindle the flame of solidarity and mutual support, or, as some would phrase it, burden sharing. Whether it is the new Pact on Migration and Asylum or the recent project of guidelines to facilitate the arrival into Europe of competences and talents, the discussions and the debates are underway and will be difficult, certainly, and tenuous. In this conference, we will try to give answers to the questions many communities are asking, many refugees and asylum seekers are confronted with as they enter a space, as they enter a space they are not familiar with, a new set of laws and regulations they ignore, a society with different references, different culture, and different vision of the world altogether. As you can see, the subject is very vast, intricate, and delicate as it deals with human beings. It requires a clear understanding of the proposed way forward. For all of these reasons, we thought the best introduction would be from the European Commission itself. And I have the pleasure to call on Ms. Vivian Lunella, head of the European Commission representation in Estonia, to give the opening speech and set the stage for our discussions. Ms. Vivian.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And good morning. Very glad to welcome you here in Tallinn. Sorry about the weather. I think it must be very cold comparing to Varna, where you come from now, right? But that's the way life is here. I'm very glad to be here this morning to be talking to you about the theme of your conference is inclusive and sustainable Europe. Because when we look at the fundamental values of the European Union, rule of law, democracy, liberal economy, all this is not possible in the 21st century without it being inclusive and sustainable. And this is what has been really guiding the work of the European Commission over the past years. But I want to speak to you now what we're doing now during the course of this mandate of the Commission for the past 2 years. So when we look at inclusive and sustainable, I want to take you back in time by almost 3 years now, when in the summer 2019, the European leaders got together and elected a new, or chose a new president for the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, then the previous German defense minister. She had been Minister of Defense in Germany, she had been a Minister of Social Inclusion and Families in Germany, and she came to Brussels representing the German Conservatives, saying, or then becoming the president of the European Commission and representing the whole of Europe, of course, but saying that her big objective for her mandate was the Green Deal, was making this transition of turning Europe into a climate-neutral continent by 2050. And that was something that, even when we go back only just 3 years from now, back in time, it was by many, including in Estonia, seen as something too ambitious, saying, why would you do that? Why would you put this Europe in a weaker position than the rest of the world? We don't have to be responsible for the whole global warming. We are such a small economy. But she went on with it, and of course had a strong support from her Commission, from the European Parliament, and as well as from the member states. And why did we do that? Why did the European Commission push so much to go forward with this green transition? Is exactly this, that if we want, and this is what we want, of course, to continue living a life which is still similar to what we're having, we have to change everything. We cannot accept in the current moment that we don't do anything about climate change and we just carry on. That's excluded. This possibility does not exist anymore. And by taking the initiative in Europe, that means that we can also shape the way we take forward this green transition, just as Estonia, for example, when you look back 20 years ago, Estonia is still a very small country, but in the year 2000 decided we will go digital. We will go fully digital, and I'm sure you'll hear about it during your time here in Tallinn. And that was, again, something nobody had ever done before. But for a small country of just a little bit more than 1 million people, population, it's not only about the money in the European Union, it's about the people. Then that has brought not only tremendous, it's good for the state budget by the costs you cut by going digital, but it has also created a full ecosystem of startups, of unicorns, of new business models, and it has given Estonia a state image which most other Eastern European countries don't have. So in a way, of course, Estonia is very small, the European Union is huge compared to that, but in a way this green transition is very similar. If you take the initiative, you go forward, you can shape the rules, you can influence the way much bigger economies afterwards do the green transition. And this is something that now, when we look back at where we are in 22, you have more than almost 70% of the world economies have said, yes, we go also along with this green transition by 2050. So that shows, of course, that we're working on making sure Europe is sustainable, but it also adds that by the sustainability, we feed into the inclusiveness. We work, all our work with the third countries is also about how do we help them make this green transition. And then, of course, you always have big plans, and then the reality happens. So you had the Green Deal. It started out well. 3 months afterwards, Corona started. And the whole work on Corona in the European Union was about inclusiveness, was about how do we make sure, first of all, that we get first it was the, the protective gear, but that we passed that point. But then for the vaccines, the European Union has been pushing hard to make sure that we have the vaccines available for the whole of the world. It's a very inclusive approach. It's about, yes, the EU has been the area in the world which has been producing a lot of vaccines, but also has been exporting tremendously. It's billions of doses that have been sent to countries around the world to make sure that that everybody gets a chance to get this vaccination, to get out of this disease. Because the belief, again, very much like with the green transition, is there's no point of doing this alone. It's not just us. There is, and this is exactly what we've seen, of course, over the past 2 years with the corona, that there is the borders really don't matter in that case. When we look at around the globe, you've had countries which didn't have the epidemic or pandemics for 2 years, then they're in it now. You had New Zealand who prevented it for years, then had it still. So this is something where, again, this inclusive approach of the European Union has been very much to make sure that not only do we take care of our own citizens, but we also make sure that the world citizens have the possibility to get the vaccines and have the possibility, therefore, to get out of this disease. So these have been the two main topics that have been at the center of the agenda of the European Union for the past 3 years. The green transition and the corona crisis. And then, of course, now here we are in May 22, and we have again war in Europe. And that's something which is awful, it's dramatic, but we've had more than 5 million people fleeing the war who have entered the European Union. Estonia itself has welcomed more than 2% of our population, people here, making everything to assure that they're welcome, that they're integrated. And I think this also puts a very different debate on the whole migration pact, which the ambassador referred to already. That in a way, the way we discuss migration is something that is changing also in the European Union, and that's certainly something which leads again to a more to more solidarity, basically. That's the word for it. And right now, what the European Union is doing is, of course, doing everything we can to help Ukraine. This means, first of all, weapons. We need to provide weapons to Ukraine, because just as the Ukrainian foreign minister says that if Russia stops the war, there is no longer a war. If Ukraine stops the war, there is no longer Ukraine. And this has been sort of the driving force, what we're doing. We're welcoming the war, the people fleeing the war in the European Union. And of course, we are also working already, we are working just as well on the sanctions on Russia to make sure that we make it as hard and as impossible for them as possible to wage this war. But on the other hand, also looking already what are the ways to build Ukraine back better after the war. So this, I think, gives you a quick tour of where we are in the European Union. All those topics are there, of course, to feed into the what you are doing about active citizens. All this that is being pushed at the European level wouldn't happen without the active involvement of the citizens. And this is why I really thank you for your engagement in this debate. It's very, very important to have I think, the people also expressing their views and pushing forward and pushing your politicians in working harder, be it the green transition, be it peace in general, be it working on how to make our social systems more resilient. So I think that's very important. And finally, I want to tell you that on Monday, it will be the 9th of May, which in Europe we celebrate as Europe Day. And just to think back where it came from, it's from 1950, when the then French Foreign Minister, Robert Schuman, came up with this idea of his declaration of creating a European coal and steel association, society, something, union. And this by now seems, of course, now we speak about the green transition, steel and coal, how old-fashioned. But what was the idea behind it? The idea behind it was that we were then, in 1950, 5 years after the bloodiest war in Europe. And the idea of Robert Schuman, which we are celebrating on the 9th of May, was that if you bind the countries together through economic terms, they won't anymore wage war against each other. And this is what we've seen. We've seen the European countries, when we look at the countries within the European Union, they are so interconnected. We have the common market, we have the common space to travel, we have the common money, and there is no way war would come back here. Unfortunately, we have it now at our borders, and we're doing everything to stop it. But thank you so much, and I wish you a very fruitful day ahead here in Tallinn, and I hope you'll get to also enjoy it a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, for this introduction, and I think you have touched the variety of subjects that all lead us to the common denominator of this conference, which is how we can all help. You mentioned two things that I would like to highlight here. First of all, that when you were talking about the pandemic, the conclusion was that no one can do it alone. And I think this is also something that will resonate throughout this conference, that not a single one of us can do it alone, but together, that's how we will make it happen. The second thing you mentioned, the concept of linking the world or the countries, particularly Europe, from an economic point of view, and that will lead to the cessation of hostilities and wars. And I think today we live in a world whereby I suppose citizens, if you link the world through its citizens, particularly through its CSOs, I think that could lead to a much, much better understanding, and certainly the reduction, the very substantial reduction of conflicts and of wars. So we need to continue in our commitment towards that. Now we move on to our keynote speakers. We have 3 keynote speakers this morning. And I would like to call on Anneli Reimaa, Head of the International Relations in the field of integration of the Estonian Ministry of Culture. And the topic will be inclusive society and integration policy from the perspective of the state and social stakeholders on migration crisis. Please.
Hello, good morning. Dear participants of the conference, dear organizers, Your Excellency, I'm really very glad to meet you here in Tallinn, despite of this weather, as it was told before, but I really hope that you enjoy Estonia, our nice capital, our culture, and our warm heart, actually. It's really a very good possibility here today to talk about a little bit more about the Estonian integration policy. We have very long-term experience in it, and it's on the eve of the European Day, which is also very important. Estonia is a very big supporter of European values, all these policies already for a long time, and we are happy that we are the members of the European Union, so we can act much more together, we can share the European values and so on. Estonia, as it was on the map, and is in the map, is like a small corner of Europe, but actually we are a small nation, but we are trying to do everything best we can. As you know, Estonia is e-Estonia. Electronical and digital skills are very, very important in our country, and it helps us make us bigger as we are. So, now, where I have to... it doesn't work. Of course, my name is Anneli Reimaa, and I'm working as a Minister of Culture, and it's maybe a bit interesting that the Minister of Culture is responsible for the integration policies. And it's already long-term experience since 2010. We are responsible for the whole policy making. And in Estonia, we believe that if we are not big in our numbers, so we can be big in our culture and our capability to make policies. And culture is one thing which really connects people over the borders, and it's like a soft policy, actually. And I would like to give you a small overview about the background, situation just now. Thank you. Yes. And talk about our new integration development plan, and also show you some experiences and good practice which we have done during last 30 years in integration policy. And this conference is also connected to EU Action Plan on Integration and Inclusion, which also puts a very big emphasis that integration is a two-way process. So we can work, if we are talking about integration, not just the newcomers or people with another ethnic background, but we have to talk also and work with local people, with people which is like a receiving society of the immigrants. And as you know, Estonia is population 1.3 million people, a bit more. Now our number of inhabitants or our people is rising due to the crisis. Also since 2015 we have already a positive trend in our immigration, which is maybe a little bit different of other EU countries which are on the eastern side of European Union. But I think economically we have developed very well, and also we have put a lot of efforts to make services digitally, so we have e-residents and so on. And if you're looking at the population, so we have a huge number of people who have Russian background, who are talking in Russian language and who are native Russians. And this our population is, which is like have other ethnic background and other language. It comes from the years after the Second World War, when took place a big industrialization and also immigration from Soviet Union. And it is a question which where we are working very much still to give people possibilities to study language and so on. If we are talking about the crisis in Ukraine, that if we are looking at this title of this conference, Sustainable Europe, I think also about the security questions. And currently in Estonia is more than 35,000 Ukrainian refugees. And over the border, we have taken have fled more than 55,000 refugees from Ukraine. It's a very big numbers. It's a big challenge for us, because if, as you know, if there are some crises, all these gaps and problems and questions in society are much, much more visible. It means that our capacity to make integration policy, to receive newcomers, to offer them all services, and also maintain stability of in the country, it shows how strong we are. And I think, and I'm absolutely sure that we have a long-term experience and we can offer the best services we can, and all Estonia supports Ukrainians in this terrible crisis, humanitarian crisis. So it's not just the state is offering you some service, but the whole population tries to help somehow these peoples who are not just now have to flee from their home country. So, next slide. So, as we always stress that Estonia is a multicultural country, and we have the immigration is on the rise, And the most new immigrants are coming from actually from the previous Soviet Union. So we have people who are coming or arrived to Estonia not from Europe or European Union or some other third countries, but also from Russia, from Ukraine, and from Belarus. And what is social cohesion? I looked at some explanations in different political documents as well, that it's capacity to ensure the well-being of all its members. And it's our policy that we are trying to give for all people who are in Estonia the equal opportunities, equal possibilities to work, to get acquainted with our culture, with our history, with our language. And we're really doing a big efforts on this way, and our government is very, very supportive. So during the last 2-3 months, we have got extra support from government to manage with this crisis just now, which is going on. And our integration policy started after the re-independence of Estonia already in the early 90s. So we have just now already the 4th integration program in Estonia. The first one was launched year 2000. Preparations were made much earlier. And which we have to stress, and which we're trying to stress, is that Estonian integration is based on the openness of Estonian society. We have been until 1992 behind the iron curtains, actually. And that's why you see that we have not so many newcomers from African states or from Asia, but now we have, thanks to the European Union, the work by the European Commission and other good partners, we have got very good experiences and also knowledge how to work out effective programs. For example, language immersion programs from different countries, also how to work with Roma community. So it has been a big success in Estonian integration policy, I think, so that we have avoided big conflicts. And security question is also a very important part, I stress it once again, in integration policy. And which is also makes this field a bit difficult, that it's very horizontal. That it's not just culture or education, but it's also labor market, it's medical aid, healthcare, media is very, very important, and much more important in recent years and coming years, how to reach to your partners, how to reach your target groups. So, and it's also gives us possibility to work out the very good and effective adaptation and integration services. So, now very shortly about our new program, which we call Cohesive Estonia 2030. So it's development plan or a program which supports or stresses that we don't have to talk if you're making integration policy, not just how to, well, do you know Estonian language or what is your citizenship, but the cohesion of society is the most important thing, that we reach to the people, we have a dialogue, we have trust. To build the bridges of trust is one of the most important tools in integration policies, that people meet each other, we have contracts, we talk to each other, we're looking to your eyes. What do you feel? What do you think? It makes us stronger if we are working together with our target groups, with other ministries, that we know what we do and how we act, and we do it all together. And the general objective of the action plan is that Estonia is a cohesive and inclusive society. We can't allow for us that we have some ghettos or some other certain parts of the city of Tallinn or other regions of Estonia that the people live very separately. And it means that we have to go on very, very grassroots level. We work with NGOs, we work with local municipalities, and it's like a new challenge to in Estonian integration policies, how involve local people, especially local municipalities, in integration policy, that the people who are working on grassroots level say, and very in different regions, that so understand how important it is that we are thinking and offering services for the whole population, not just in Estonian, but also in Russian language, in English, or maybe Arabic. How does it need? That it's also a bit work to which is directed to the local populations, that you have to be open, because if we are cohesive, if we are then we have a sustainable state. And there are the main courses of action that, as I told before, local level partnerships. We also develop modern and effective integration programs, which are also based partly on the digital services. Communication is very important to explain what we are doing and how we are doing. Also due this coronavirus, many people are working at home via digital tools, via internet, and of course improving Estonian language skills is also very important, that you have to participate in our social life, in our cultural life, to understand. We have equipments in our museums, in theaters, to get interpretation, but if you understand the language, if you read the Estonian books, you looking at our films, you understand better us, our soul, how we work, how we act. So supporting inclusion is very, very important, and that's why we have a different dialogue platforms. We are supporting cultural events in regions. For example, in Narva region, a lot of people who have a Russian background, that people can meet each other. They can look the same performances, the same concerts. And we also picking up good talents, maybe singers, actors, which are recognized, which are very appreciated from the Estonians. And we are really happy, for example, that we have the Eurovision contest very, very soon, that the representative of Estonia has Armenian roots. So everyone loves him. So it means that really the cultural or multicultural space in Estonia, it gives us new talents, new challenges, and as well very, very happy moments that we are acting all together. And as it was told before, that out-of-box solutions are sometimes very, very effective. And for example, if we had coronavirus 2 years ago, so was a question how we can make language courses, for example. We can't gather in the classroom. And then came new solutions. For example, many people voluntarily joined language courses like mentors. And we called this program for Keelesõber, it's a friend of language. At the voluntary people, 400 people who wanted to study Estonian, and 400 who are ready to be mentors, that people can talk. And which has also been very, very good, that the study in Estonian language has made like a new renewal, these old methodologies, that it's not just grammar, but it's very important to encourage people to talk each other. It's not questions that maybe you make some small mistakes in grammar. It's most important you have courage to talk, and it means that you really feel yourself very comfortable, self-confident, and you can work and do everything if you in the beginning maybe don't know the Estonian language so well as it needed. We have adaptation programs and consulting. In Estonia, we think it's very important that we talk to people. We just not give the paper, but if you have question, you can come to the Integration Foundation, where we can offer consultation services that people can explain to you what you have to do. It's like a liaison office somehow. So for the newcomers, there are free courses in language, in different modules of study, researchers, international protection modules, work modules, that we explain how Estonian society is functioning. So very important part of the adaptation programs or early stage integration programs are also socializing events. We're offering excursions, there are joint food making and so on. And of course, communication is very important. That now when we have crisis, we have war in Europe, there are a lot of fake news that people really can read this news and understand what is wrong, what is right, and it's very often that in integration policy we also fighting for the truth, that people really know what's happening in the world. We have a neighboring country, Russia, and for example in Narva it's also possible to look at Russian TV, which gives us absolutely another picture. Language studies with culture, with singing, as I described. So we have Estonian language houses, which were launched 2 years ago, and they are really been very popular, like also somehow dialogue platforms for people who are using the services there. We have very different language courses where you can make handicraft or make hiking and so on, but there are many different people there, as well as Estonians who are attending voluntarily. So dialogue platforms with minority organizations, we are making different forums, hackathons, for example, already 10 years. We have that kind of forum in Ida-Virumaa. It's Narva region. When we are meeting different people, we are trying to find solutions to the different questions and actual political questions, but we are trying to do it via culture. And of course, meetings and different events between different communities, very important, that people have to feel themselves comfortable. In our countries, that you know, how Estonian families are living, what is our main values and so on. So, which is maybe different from other countries which I have met or my colleagues in European Union, that we are supporting also cultural diversity a lot, that we have state programs which are giving financial support to different umbrella organizations which are working on the ethnic minority groups. It's very important that these people, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Armenians, Georgians who are living in Estonia, that their culture is also visible. We can visit their festivals, listen to their language, and we also support Sunday schools, that these people who have lived in Estonia for a long time, they don't forget what is your mother tongue, but is actually your homeland. And so it doesn't work again. So I think my time is over, so it doesn't work anymore. Actually, I would like to tell that I think in Estonia we have very much to share to you, including which goes integration policy. And we are really very happy if we can get some good experiences abroad. And we always we tell that we can't adopt everything very directly, but we are all this experiences, all this knowledge, and also good advices we are looking through and adapting to our local conditions, but because every country has their own history, their own consistent of ethnic groups, population, we have to look everything through the local prisma and take over the best part of the European experience to create cohesive society here on the shore of Baltic Sea. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And welcome to Estonia again.
Thank you very much. It was really very good. Thank you. Thank you, Annalie. And I hope that the cohesive Estonia 2030 development plan is available online, so we can access it and read more about it. And I would like to say really that you have touched on almost all the points that we have been discussing in the last 3 days in Narva and will be in discussion today. And I'm glad to really hear you say that your approach is based on a number of concepts and a number of important points. And I noted awareness, I noted openness, I noted respect, and I noted acceptance. And I think these are really the guiding lines that we all need to bear in mind when we move forward. You talked about communication and the importance of connecting communities, and I think that is key. So, in conclusion, I would like to say you started by saying that Estonia is a small country, but I would say it with a big heart. So thank you. Let us now hear from our second keynote speaker. And I would like to call on Sara Pelander, Director of Migration Institute of Finland. And now we're going to have the perspective from Finland. And she will speak to us about European policies and migration integration, needs, possibilities, and limitations. Sara, please.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Sara Pelander. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you again for the invitation. And actually, I'm going to talk a bit about different things than is in the original program. Now, there you have a changed title. And actually, I'm also going to talk about a bit different stuff than it's in this title. And the reason for that is that when I was kindly invited a while ago, when part of this group had a gathering in Brussels, I gave quite a similar talk. And Vasily asked me to give a similar speech here. But then I last night realized how many of you were already in Brussels and have heard this quite similar talk. So I actually decided to change it very last minute last night. So I'm going to talk a bit about a different perspective. It's related to this, and I'm going to come back to this part of these points. But actually, yeah, I'll have a bit of a different perspective, you will see. I'm the director of the Migration Institute in Finland, and every now and then we are contacted by people who want to apply for a residence permit and think that we are the immigration office, which we are not. So in case you are making the same confusion, I'm just very shortly for 1 minute presenting what the Migration Institute in Finland is. So we are a foundation, a research institute, and we study the interaction between migration and the society overall. We also produce and gather data and material about migration. We have an archive, we have a library, and we actively participate in societal debates that is related to migration. We are very often asked by different ministries to comment on proposals for different bills, and we are actively participating in migration debates in the media and popularizing scientific findings. So it's not only academic research, but very much also about outreach, about trying to make a difference, about trying to improve the way migration is dealt with, that it's based on knowledge-based or research-based knowledge, basically. and that is one of our main missions. Yeah, we kind of do research on historical migration movements, then research that's more about the current situation, about today, and disseminated to the media. But what I'm going to talk about today is actually a concept that's called demigrantization. And that's actually the key point, which is why we find a key here. Before I start that, because when we speak about migration, we often do it with quite this notion of exceptionalism, with this being something that is super out of the ordinary. It's a problem we have to deal with. It's something we've never experienced before. And I think it's just important to remind us that migration is not very exceptional. People have always migrated, they have always moved. Actually, also when we speak about the rising numbers, it's good to remind ourselves that in 1900, 3% of the world's population were migrants, and in 2021 it was 3.4%. So we also always talk about this like huge increase and these waves and these, the way, I mean, you know how migration is discussed in the media, I don't have to tell you about this. And it's often with this kind of moral panic. And I think as much as I think it's important, I mean, I'm coming from a place that's called Migration Institute, so it's kind of paradoxical that I'm not saying, well, let's demigrantize, but I'm going to explain to you why I'm saying this. And I'm actually a migrant myself. I moved to Finland from Germany. But one thing that I think when we speak about migration is very prominent is that in addition to this moral panic, it's also the question who is a migrant, who is not. This is something you probably also know. For example, in Finland, when you Google the word maahanmuuttaja, immigrant, the images you see, and then you look at the statistics who are immigrants in Finland, they don't really match up. So the biggest groups who come to Finland and the image you have of immigrant are quite different. And oftentimes when we speak about immigration, we speak about humanitarian migration, about refugees. And in Europe today, it's even more pressing than ever before to speak about this. So I'm not saying let's not talk about refugees at all. But what I'm saying is that the way migration is talked about often boils down to a quite small part of what the huge phenomena of migration actually is about. And that the majority of people moves for all kinds of other reasons that are oftentimes very much ignored in the media. So this just as an introduction of where I'm coming from. So why a demigrantization of migration research and policies, and what do I actually mean when I say this? So I'm going to, in this talk, shortly talk about what I mean, why I think this should be done, and not me, but this is developed by other scholars, and how. And then in the how, I'm going to link back to European integration policies and inclusion. That is the theme of today. So Janine Dahinten, in an article of hers, has written about this call to demigrantize migration. Well, in her case, it was migration research, but I would argue this can also be extended to how we talk about policies, integration, two-way integration. And her call is to move away from treating the migrant population as the main unit of analysis and investigation, and instead we should direct our focus to the whole population, which obviously then includes migrants. And speaking about inclusion in Europe today towards inclusive and sustainable Europe, understanding Europe as a whole, where migrants are part of and not an exceptional, strange thing that we somehow have to deal with, is connected to this. So why? Why should we demigrantize when we speak about migration in research and scholarship, and I would even argue in policy making? So one is related to what I said before, this de-exceptionalization. So if we treat it as something that's really exceptional, it also calls for quite exceptional policies, and as we know, in many cases, for quite strict policies. And treating something as an exception then makes it, of course, also okay to have all kinds of quite exceptional ways of dealing with it. So this demigrantization, if we actually look at society as a whole and how different groups of people, no matter, I mean, migration is one part that defines you. It can be a racial difference, it can be linguistic difference, it can be class differences, poverty, able-bodiedness. I mean, speaking of intersectionality. So if we only focus on migration, which I'm again saying not saying we should not do ever at all, but I'm just saying that the way we speak about these things could be done in a bit of a different way. Then also, when we separate people as kind of migrants and non-migrants, we create these differences as if they were naturally given, as if people were just born into the world as either migrant or non-migrant, which of course we all know is not really true. And if we focus on migration as this separate, weird topic that we always have to deal with in this state of exceptionalism, we support this view that the difference between people that is created, one of us can be a migrant, someone then is an expat. You know, if you're a white person from a wealthy country moving abroad, you're suddenly not a migrant, you're an expat. And some are migrants. Yeah, that these categories are not really, they don't exist, they're made and shaped by people. And if we demigrantize, we would maybe hope and be able to overcome these categorizations. Another thing that migration scholarship has criticized quite a lot, and those of you who have studied migration issues know this, for some of you this concept might be new, but there's this concept called methodological nationalism, referring to the fact that oftentimes we use the nation state as this main reference point on how we discuss issues and things. And in a global world, I'm not saying the nation state is not relevant, and this is also what critics of methodological nationalism are not saying, because oftentimes it's still the nation state who crafts, for example, entry regulations, bordering systems, residence permit systems. So of course the nation state is still making decisions that affect migrants very much. But that when we look at phenomena on a global scale, that it's not only the nation state that should be the main point, and that we compare different kind of entities as if they were also, again, a bit similar to how I was saying before, that these different categories, migrant, non-migrant, should not be pre-existing. A little bit also in this way, thinking, okay, our nation state and the way they function, is that the only way to think about the world? And then this holistic view on society, that we look at society as a whole instead of focusing on what I would here call the other. So kind of saying, well, we're looking at society, for example, at Europe as a whole, and not only in different silos of different groups of people. Well, how should we then demigrantize? What does that actually mean? So one thing would be to distinguish between analytical categories and legal categories. So of course, I mean, if I move to Finland as a non-EU citizen on the basis of, let's say, marriage, then I would be called maybe a marriage migrant, or it would be called family reunification from this legal point of view. But then if there would be research about me, that would not entirely for the end of my life define me in that same category. So we have legal categories. People are legally, for example, refugees, and that is important. It's important to be legally recognized as a refugee, and there's a difference between that and being an asylum seeker, for example. So of course these legal categories are important and really relevant and make huge difference, and can be actually questions of life and death in many people's lives. But then when we discuss these phenomena, we should distinguish what are the analytical categories, especially in migration research, and what are the legal categories that governments and laws use, and they can be quite different. And I've argued very much in my own research that people's lives are often more manifold than these legal categories allow for. So for example, you can be at the same time fleeing war, joining family members, working, and so you can be like labor migrant, family migrant, humanitarian, move for humanitarian reasons, basically all at the same time. But then when you apply for residence permits, you have to choose. You are either this or that. So these are the legal categories. But in people's lives, they of course intertwine, and people might move for all kinds of reasons that are connected to each other. Then another call that scholars ask for is actually use social theory, apply theories that we have about how society functions to migration studies. So we oftentimes have migration studies as a separate field, and then we have social sciences who look at society, who look at how, I don't know, how education is inherited from the different generations, look at poverty, look at politicization of different groups, you name it. So we have all these social theories, and then we have migration theories. And migrants are just people. So in effect, the demigrantization would be to use these theories that we have from social sciences to study society as a whole, and not treat migration as like separate out of this. So the call would be out of the migration container, as it's called here. Now this has stopped working. Can I use the computer? Thank you. Can I put it up there, or should I come here? Can I stand here? All right. I'll just quickly switch positions. Sorry for that. Okay. Yeah, and now we're getting back to integration and inclusion. So we've heard before from the really interesting talk about integration policies in Estonia. Thank you again for this great presentation. That integration policies rest on this understanding of two-way integration. And it's the same in Finland. It's the same, at least the way that integration is discussed on the European level in many places, luckily. So that we are getting away from the notion that integration is something that only applies to those who come somewhere from elsewhere, but it's something, and that's why I would argue that this call that we have had in migration literature and migration studies to demigrantize migration research, that this very much links to this understanding of two-way integration, this understanding that instead of focusing on those who move, we should focus on the whole society. What I said already in my talk in Brussels, and I will repeat it here, I would argue that even though that in most immigration policies and immigration legislations and integration programs, for example, we find the word inclusion much more than before. Before we only talked about integration. Luckily, we are moving towards speaking of inclusion, which I very much welcome. We are also speaking very much of two-way integration. What I'm still a bit critical of, and you can convince me of the opposite, I would argue that most funding for programs still goes into not changing the society as a whole, but it still goes into improving those who arrive. And of course, again, I'm not saying we should stop language courses or things like that. I'm just saying that if we really, really take two-way integration seriously, that would actually mean like tackling issues like structural racism. And that might also include talking about things that might be quite uncomfortable, because if we have to look at our societies and how they can be more welcoming, we also have to speak about, you know, white privilege and things connected to that, for example. And these are not always very nice and comfortable discussions. It's much nicer to celebrate diversity in a positive way, which is also important to do. But at the same time, if you really want to take two-way integration seriously, we have to study society as a whole. And there I would argue that the theory that is now evolving, where this concept is much more prominent than it used to be, and the practice, what happens on the ground, what happens when someone comes to the employment office or to the social office or wherever you start your integration program, when you arrive there and how you are treated, I doubt that anyone arrives there and people are saying, okay, let's now go and change Finnish society to be more inclusive, but they arrive there and are saying, you have to learn our way of life. So I think there, the theory and the practice, there's still some way to go to improve that. And this is the one slide that I'm repeating from my talk in Brussels. So I think one thing that would help to go forward with this would to critically self-evaluate and reflect on these policies and programs that we have related to integration policies and migration policies. So who do we hear? Who do we listen to? Who are the experts? Are the experts people who were born and raised in that country and have no experience of migration whatsoever? Or is the knowledge that we listen to the knowledge by people who have actually moved and know what it's like to go and settle elsewhere? Whose interests is served when we do these policies, when we do these changes? Is it like, yeah, whose life is improved and who is helped by these? For example, in this project I'm now working for, it's called Mobile Futures, related to two-way integration in Finland. And there we apply a method that we call the Living Lab method. So that means that all research that we do, we talk to different interest groups, we talk to different stakeholders, we talk to migrant groups and advocates to discuss these processes all the time, not only at the beginning and at the end, but while we are doing and implementing and critically re-evaluating. And I think this is something that should be done much more, both in policy and research. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that was really indeed a total new perspective, very refreshing. And I think it's also another item that we can include in our discussions. And I hope you will look into those, into that approach and see maybe areas where you can further develop them, challenge them, and look at the ways of we can move forward on the subject. Our third, certainly not least, keynote speaker is Mr. Stefanos Valianatos from Greece. A very popular man. And
the only man until now.
oh, so far, okay. So Stefanos will speak to us of the role of civil society organization in ensuring the integration of migrants and refugees European Union. Stefanos, and I'm going to ask you if it is possible to be very short. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasily, for putting me at the end of this sports and therefore putting me in a very difficult position how to follow up those incredible presentations. So I have to improvise a little bit. So what can we do here? Anyway, so let's see. When you see the title of my presentation, you see I would divide it in two different entities and see how do they fit in. And maybe that makes a bit. On the one hand, I have the civil society domain, and on the other hand, we have the immigrants and the need to assist in the integration. First point I would like to make is that we have moved away, and this is an important notion, from policies of assimilation and gradually, and it was very interesting that was already mentioned for the previous ones, we are talking not only more about integration but inclusion. And this is an interesting step forward. The point I would like to make here is that if we would like to understand how civil society can work and assist in the integration or inclusion of the migrants, then I will have to see a little bit of each group, what it is, its characteristics, and how those ones can be met. So on the one hand, civil society, what is the civil society and what is the added value of it? And then I would talk a little bit about the challenges and the problems. So civil society is by definition the space in between the government sector, the market, and the family. It is included there. We have people who are voluntarily present in activism, most likely in an associative form and not only individually. Another characteristic is that the diversity of its nature and characteristics and the focus on specific themes. The other very important thing is that by having so many civil society organizations, then we have a very large outreach and getting deep into society, which offers an important element which was outlined the previous days, is that the legitimacy of their action vis-à-vis any policies that can be applied. And therefore, which means, by definition, that for civil society to function and perform, it cannot do it alone. It has to work within a specific framework and a legal framework as well. I'm mentioning this one because I will take an example of a problem which, at least coming back from Greece, we have experienced. And this is that, whether we like it or not, the state, as it's expressed, it has to address all its inhabitants, including the immigrants or the travelers or the expatriates, but also the citizens of them. What's the point of allowing a migration policy to receive when you cannot really make sure that they are sustainable? They cannot have jobs. They cannot be living. They cannot offer them a living condition, living standards similar to the ones that the citizens of this country employed. So in that respect, whether we like it or not, there is a framework that helps. And in that respect, on the other hand, the civil society tends to be idealistic, tends to take, see, they said, well, there is a problem, there are people in need, we have to help them. And in that respect, in many cases, we have seen civil society organizations or NGOs. I make a distinction between NGOs and civil society, if you like, we'll come back to that, found themselves in trouble in terms of the law because they were considered that contributing to trafficking. I'm not saying that they were, but the eagerness to assist those who find themselves in the Aegean Sea put them outside the limits of the law. So this is an essential thing. But again, civil society function among states, but within the state domain. So therefore, the diversity within Europe among the countries is matched also with the diversity among civil society and the state of their development. So those are the things that we'll have to consider. Let's go to the immigrants. And the refugees, it's a little bit different. Well, once they come from someone else for different reasons. And this is essential to understand. Some of them come for economic reasons, some of them come for political reasons, some of them come for other reasons. And this is it. Once they come here, they carry with them their own perception of what the state is, what the society is, and so on and so forth. And this means, just to cut a long story short, is that while we've seen those policies, do you honestly believe that someone who comes from an entity where their human rights are being abused, they have been persecuted, that he trusts the state? You need an intermediary. And this is the role of civil society. This is one of the things it can make. It's probably not saying what to do, but how to do it. How can we cut across, how we open up, how we are the ones who work with them. And in order to do that, some of the elements that we have seen, and one of the tools that is it looks to have evolved and become very important, very useful, is intercultural dialogue. And it is very interesting, while we, at least in our community that we shared with HADEM, is that with the Anna Lindh Foundation, which is an institution devoted to intercultural dialogue between the European communities or the European societies and the Mediterranean ones, is that intercultural dialogue is applied in a different domains, yet it was primarily introduced as the next step to multiculturalism for integrating those immigrants in the societies. And why is that? Why multiculturalism seems to be a more static, recognizing different communities and their rights to exist. This is something that already mentioned here, again, is that intercultural dialogue does not see differences in terms of their interaction. They consider themselves equal, and therefore they act together in the same place, and so on and so forth. Now, again, if we see the immigrants in, let's say, in a weaker position, what are the things that civil society can offer? And this is, for the sake of argument, advocacy. This is the same of the things that, as I've said, with translation. But can it really do all those things unless it works and it's being trusted by the other institutions, the state and the immigrants? In many cases, the immigrants community choose to be isolated or located out of fear, out of tradition, out of misunderstanding of the other culture. So therefore, the need to interpret one culture to the other is essential. And this is where intercultural dialogue comes in, and it's not something that can be practiced immediately. The fact that we are Greeks and the others are Sudanese, and we are open and we have read 2 books about Sudan and vice versa, does not make us capable of performing this role. It needs what we call intercultural competences, it needs a certain education and a process that would allow it to come. And primarily it needs, which is essential, a common set of values. Now, the values in many cases are being hidden, and this is another role that civil society can play in cooperation with academia, in cooperation with other institutions. So personally, I think it's while I'm still a strong supporter of civil society, I cannot see it perform without partnerships or sectorial partnerships. Fine. If we have all described here, I think we have solved it. We have the theory of everything. I'm not sure if that's the case. In both cases, first of all, we have seen we have experienced that a lot of immigrants or newcomers, they have been abused. Not only abused by the locals, but even by their own communities, especially the ones who came earlier on. And this is where it comes, which is essential to assist them. But do they again trust the police? Do they trust the social security institutions and so on and so forth? And the complication of receiving a social security number. A good example, on the other hand, and then we have also the division between what is called the legal framework, as was mentioned earlier on, legal and illegal migrants. There is a good example from Portugal, where they created a one-step process where this is an office that deals with immigrants. This office is the only one who knows, and this handler, only one who knows whether this immigrant is an illegal or legal. Behind them, they are the ones who receive, who meet them, and solve all the administrative problems, and therefore this office is linked to all the governmental sectors. This is just a paradigm of how it can work. Problems. Well, civil society vis-a-vis NGOs is based on voluntarism. And therefore, that's not always a sustainable issue, and neither is the skills that those who form those institutions can provide this help it needed, which means that in many cases we need to repeat the training of all the ordinantships, but that at the same time they tend to be, a lot of them, youngsters, and which provide them with the eagerness to work and support. Another problem which we can find within civil society and within activism is that activism, as indeed when we see someone who is blind or whatever, we consider him as a good man. That's not the case necessarily. So that's the same with civil society and activism. We have the emergence of uncivil societies, we have the emergence of conservative civil society whose values and whose approach are completely different, who work together with states who are nationalist, who are religious oriented, and therefore there is an issue of what those are the institutions that would not support the idea of integrating or even receiving immigrants, and so on and so forth. On the positive side, on the other hand, so nationalism seems to be the natural enemy. But it's interesting, I came across an article, and it says that two major figures who once represent liberalism, but let's say the international expression of liberalism, Fukuyama, and on the other hand, a Marxist, Hobsbawm, agree that we cannot ignore nationalism. But nationalism and nations are so important that cannot be left in the hands of the nationalists. And patriotism and the flags have to be accepted. And in support of such a nation, what we consider that this is the national identity is what's going on in those last 5 years. Now, in the long run, the second, third generation of immigrants are integrated, and that there is a dynamic nature of the identity which evolves. This interaction would create in 200 years' time a completely different framework of nationalism, of the specific nationalism that is considered in each nation and include. After all, what we have considered as the Greek culture, the Polish culture, is the result of years, of centuries of a process of fusion between different elements. I think I will stop here, and if anyone would like to ask or contribute to the discussion, I think we are welcome to do that.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Stefanos, and I think your contribution really sets the tone. You have described a variety of situations and talked about different actors, from the pros, the cons, and you have told us that, in fact, there is no straight line, that there are always things that as we proceed on, we need always to think about, assess, and maybe try to reduce the negative aspect of, and then enhance the positive issues. So, all these points that Stefanos and our previous keynote speakers are really food for thought that will help us in our discussions as we move forward. Now, we are a little bit slightly late behind schedule, and so we move on to our first panel, and I have the honor and the privilege of moderating it. So I would like to call on the experts for the panel. Yanni Aispuu, head of the political team, the European Commission representation in Estonia, to join us on the panel. Ms. Eleftheria Taklaki, political scientist, researcher at the Aegean University from Greece. Mr. Rudy Reyes, director of De Breuer Centrum West, Belgium. Rudy. And I have Miss Alejandra Hansen, Ambassador of YTOP International Youth Organization. We have the youth voice here. Welcome. Alrighty, so without, I prepared a little introduction, but I'm going to skip it, so for the sake of time. And I'm going to ask our first expert, Yanni, if you could a little bit tell us some of what I would phrase the new elements in the EU thinking in terms of the new policy regarding migration, regarding integration, regarding inclusion, all the things that we have heard this morning. How are they reflected in the thinking and in the deliberations and the debates at the EU? And maybe you can give us also some ideas, but what is being proposed as a way forward? I'll get you one. We're not going to ask you to scream.
Great, it's better now. Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, I'm Jana Ispo. Our head of representation in Tallinn, Vivian, was already here to welcome you. So I'm working also in the European Commission representation in Tallinn, and I'm the head of the political team. So we are covering basically all topics, so not only migration and integration, but many other issues as well. But just give you a few thoughts from the EU perspective. So certainly, I mean, we all know migration is nothing new. No, we have about 5% of European population. I mean, the EU member states who are non-European citizens. So and recently. I mean, migration is something we experience daily, but of course we had recently in the EU several, let's see, refugee crises, 2014, 2015, connected to Syrian war, and we are currently in the moment experiencing the biggest dimension of a refugee crisis in Europe that we had since the Second World War. And so we see already here that actually the reasons for migration can be very different, yeah? So there's war, there are other reasons, there are economic reasons that people miss basic needs in their countries, or there might be also climate issues related to the climate change. Now coming to speak to Ukraine crisis, it's indeed the biggest we have faced so far since the Second World War. And of course you see here in Estonia, we are in a frontline country here, so it's felt really strongly here. We have over 35,000 Ukrainian refugees. That is almost 3% of the whole population here. It's a huge dimension for Estonia, for a small country like Estonia. But from the EU perspective, this crisis is very different from the previous crisis. I mean, for example, in comparison to the Syrian crisis, because as I already said, we have actually much higher numbers of refugees. We have mainly women and children. But what is very different is that with Ukraine, the European Union has visa-free travel since 2017. That means that those people who are fleeing and coming to European Union member states now, they actually don't need a visa. So they are not automatically applicants for asylum. So the situation is very different. Yeah, it makes things different, but it makes also simpler for us because the EU has activated the temporary protection scheme on the 3rd of March. That means that the refugees from Ukraine, they can stay for 1 year, and it can be prolonged even up to 3 years. So they can start working basically right from the scratch, and and enjoy social rights in the EU member states. So in fact, they don't need to apply as a rule. Yeah, I'm not saying that there are not certain problems or in application, but as a general rule, they don't need to apply for asylum. So it is simpler for them. Now, just to come back to last year, 2021, before the Ukraine crisis, we had a kind of Belarusian or Belarus refugee crisis. I'm speaking about that because this is a very recent new tendency that migration is used as a weapon. I mean, I must not go that much into the topic, but obviously there are vulnerable migrants who are used as political weapons, and it brings also a very new dimension into the EU migration policy challenges, let's say. So we have many new elements what we are facing since a couple of years. In the same time, in the EU, we have an urgent need to reform the current system, the Dublin system. So there's a problematic situation where we are increasingly facing multiple refugee, let's say, crisis, but we don't have a really proper working framework in the EU. So that's a big issue. Now, to say a last word about the integration as well. Obviously, when we consider also those political attempts to use migration as a weapon against our states and against our societies, we see how important is integration actually. Because certain leaders from non-democratic countries, they obviously want to divide our society. So we see how important it is actually to integrate those people, yeah, and to avoid conflicts between our or inside of our societies. And maybe I will not go into details of like the recent action plan on integration and on inclusion, what the Commission proposed recently, but just I wanted to highlight those new aspects where we need some urgent action on the political level in the EU, but where still we have facing major disagreements between the member states.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, we are fully aware of the fact that the discussions are going to be quite tense, and the issues are very important. So, okay. All right. Now, I'm going to ask Ms. Eleftheria Teklaki to, you have something
Thank
to
you. Yeah, I
show
have
on?
this very short presentation, but someone has to help me to be connected.
I have no idea, but maybe
no, I have no idea. Someone has to change.
Can you help us with this, please? Okay.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I heard very interesting things. My name is Eleftheria Teklaki. I'm a doctor in European Studies and International Relations and postdoctoral graduate at the Aegean University, and a lecturer at the same university. I'll try to give another point of view. Yes, great. Thank you very much. Concerning the migration issue, well, of course, always with dignity and solidarity in addressing the unthinkable war in Ukraine and the great humanitarian crisis which was created by the war. More than 2.2 million people have fled Ukraine, and a huge number have come to EU member states, and no one knows what can predict what will be so far from now on. We have, of course, to acknowledge the EU quick reflexes in managing the crisis, the Ukrainian crisis. On the contrary, it was not the same reaction when we had the Syrian crisis. So in that case, I would like to very quick to refresh your mind concerning the migration and asylum policy in EU. Do we really have that kind of policy? We have to say that this policy started in 1980s with the establishment of Schengen area. In the Maastricht Treaty, we had intergovernmental cooperation between member states, but it was the Treaty of Amsterdam which took for a common interest to an area of a matter of common policy and defined the problem of illegal immigration mainly as a cross-border threat. And then 2004, I have to remind you that we had the establishment of the Frontex agency. A very main issue it was that since 2005, when we're talking for migration solutions, EU was talking for the use of foreign policy instrument, and I think this is the main point, one of the main points of the migration policy in EU, the cooperation with third countries. And of course, the politicization of the development cooperation and humanitarian aid in this framework of migration and asylum, meaning that on the one hand, development assistance to partner countries, it was also in order to manage the migration phenomenon, and on the other hand, to encourage these countries to cooperate effectively in the readmission of illegal immigrants. Well, unfortunately, with the Syrian crisis, we saw another phase of EU, where the European strategy has been characterized by defensive and deterrent instruments aimed at the repeal migratory inflows. This combating illegal migration to the common security and defense policy was, of course, let's say, a reaction in all this widespread outbreak of illegal migration in the Mediterranean. But of course, it was really, we face, of course, let's say, actions that they don't really are on the same level with the communitary acquis. So the Commission points out that all these short-term and aggressive measures are not able to solve the problems of European migration policy. So then we had this transformation of its strategy from deterrence to containment, the threat of illegal migration. But as Angela Merkel writes, she said that the migration crisis will define this decade. I will add, will test in also the European integration process. Very quick, we are talking now for the new Pact of Migration and Asylum, and of course, as all you know, it's not already confirmed because there are member states that they don't agree with many articles of the new pact. But I have to say that in this pact, they mention a lot the externalization of the migration policy, and the meaning that they have to use soft law agreements so they can cooperate with third countries. And of course, there are a lot of tools and finance in this area concerning these agreements, which are signed under the names of friendship, support, solidarity, etc. Well, the EU thinks that it's a win-to-win situation, but of course there are also criticized from the other part concerning if it's really a win-to-win situation or not. But I have to raise a question. What is the role of civil society in all these agreements? This is something that we have to take it into account. Very quick, I will present you what's going on with the African continent, where we do have a lot of partnership agreement like the Cotonou, the new post-Cotonou agreement, the joint Africa-EU strategy, and cooperation, of course, with bilateral, like with Libya, Niger, and other African countries. And we have to say that in this agreement, there is the innovation of the promotion and the action of NGOs and the civil society. But I think that till now, we don't really have a big progress on that. And it's very important to take into consideration the evaluation of the past actions and added value in the new in the new agreements. And I think also Stefanos mentioned that. And this is why, because all of us, we know that after all these big, huge funds from EU and all these policies to the third countries, we still face problems. And of course, the countries itself, they still have big problems concerning the migration. And here I think this data, it's very obvious. You can see since 1990 till 2020 the big flows from Africa, and in the intra migration, but also the external migration to European Union. And here you can see also a very good data showing where the flows of migration are going, and you can see that a lot of them are coming to Europe. And so of course it's always a big problem. Concluding, I have to say that in the new Pact of Migration and Asylum, 4 dimensions has to be considered: solidarity, multi-level governance. Solidarity means that we have to, it has to be at the heart of EU policies. Multi-level governance, meaning that we have to have the participation of all levels of governance, of civil society, of course, and we have to facilitate in the fund for European aid and all the fund for migration. And of course, we have no the magic receipts to solve all this problem, but it's very important to understand the problem and of course to work all together, meaning that we have to conclude the civil society in the EU policies issues. And of course, I think this image is very characteristic. I don't think that none of us want this. We don't want to send them back where we have fights, we have terrorism, we have conflicts, etc. Because I think with the migration policy, the basic values of the European acquis, like human rights, democracy, rule of law, should be at the center of EU migration policy. Thank you very much.
How intricate, how difficult, and how tenuous all the discussions have all been since the beginning of the first movements. And I think you went back to the Syria crisis, and then you moved on to take us to where we are today, and with the principles that you insisted on: the solidarity, the multilateral approach, and the inclusion of civil society organization within this whole search for solution and the best approach, but all still remaining on the basis of values. And I think it's very, very important that we bear in mind all this. Now, we move on to Rudy Reyes, Director of De Breuil Centrum West from Belgium. And let me ask a question before you start your presentation. Is maybe you can give us a little bit of your conclusion or how you see the results of the policy followed by Belgium in terms of migration, integration, inclusion, if it has started.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I should like to ask you to stand up for 1 minute. Because you have been sitting the whole time and you stretch yourself in all positions. You have this, okay. Authorization, I think, His Excellency, I could do that for at once, 1 minute, yeah.
Absolutely, if you allow me to sit down.
Yeah, of course. Okay, sit down, please. I see happy people, so I'm convinced I did probably a good thing. Okay, good afternoon, or good morning, because time is going very quickly. I hope you will accept that I'm going to talk in 2 languages, because many of the people coming from Belgium, they don't understand English that well. So I will probably do it in French and in English. I will try to be very practical. Today I have heard a lot of very beautiful theories. I recognize myself very much from the intervention of the Finland exposal. I think this is what we are thinking, and that's what we are doing nowadays. So the main question I was asked before coming here is, what do we do as NGOs in order to implement what the European government and our Belgian government is offering as a frame? Well, first of all, I should like to say if you will have, or if you want to have a good example of what we could do, come to see Basil. But unfortunately, he is not here. But I say, please come to see Basil, because he's giving us every time a very good idea and bringing people together, bringing different issues, bringing different thoughts together. I think this is very wonderful, because this will really help us to implement something which is and which remains very theoretical. This is a frame. What do we try to do in Belgium? Well, first of all, NGOs are a little bit special in Belgium. We don't have that much NGOs. We have a lot of organizations, but they are not considered as NGOs, because NGOs are very strict. So this gives us the possibility to be rather free in what we are doing according to the policies which are presented. And I will give you some small ideas today what we can do with people as belonging to an inclusive community. And I should like to ask Jérémy. J'aimerais bien demander Jérémy de venir à un petit moment ici. Donc Jérémy vient du Congo. Voilà. Je l'avais promis que j'allais l'intervenir.
Quand on t'appelle.
Jeremy, you don't have to talk. Il ne faut pas parler. When we greet each other in the morning, how do we do that? If you come to greet me in the morning, you show. Quand tu viens me saluer le matin, comment tu le fais? Montre-le, montre-le. Alors, voilà. When my people come in the morning and they come to the center, then the first sign is a warm welcome. If we see people coming from abroad, and we don't see them as somebody different, but we see them as a part of our community, I think the first thing we have to do is to say wholeheartedly welcome and to show it. I had a very, very special experience lately. One of the boys of Rwanda came to me, Omidi, and he said, "You are so special in Central West." He was not talking about me, fortunately. But he said, "You are so special in Central West because it's the first place where I come." I could ask the question, where do you come from? Tu es d'où?
Du Mali.
I'm coming from Mali. What will be added value to know that he's from Mali, except the fact that he has a beautiful culture, and now the Mali culture, and it's wonderful and you need to discover it, but he's still a human being. We are all human beings, and the first fact is to say to people clearly, I consider you as a human being. I say you hello as I do it in my tradition. Normally in Belgium we are not that warm-hearted, but I learned that from Africans. So this is the first fact. A second element which I find very important in order to have to each one a place is housing first. This seems very stupid when I talk about it. Donc la première des choses qui est très important, c'est d'avoir un logement. And for everybody, not only for migrants, but for everybody. I don't know if you are aware, but we are a modern country. This is what they say about Belgium. They say we have all, but people are living on the street. And there is a mixture of all kinds of citizens living on the street. So if you want to include somebody in a society, and if we want to implicate and to implement the real actions bringing people at ease, I think the first thing we have to do is housing first. I could ask to these fellows, and I will do it, who had problems in order to find a house. I can ask it also to people from Sweden, I guess. I can ask it to people from Finland. There are people from Italy, from Spain. There are people from Rhodes. I will ask you the question, who had problems to find a house? Qui a eu des problèmes de trouver un logement? Bah, il ne faut pas avoir peur, hein? Donc don't be afraid. Qui a eu en Belgique aussi des problèmes? You see, well, we are talking about inclusion. We are talking about inclusion, and one of the basic rights is not available. The basic right of having a house, simply having a house. The third element I find very important is everything which is related towards education. Education is a basic right. Education on measure What do I mean? En mesure. What do I mean with that? Very often what is happening in Belgium, people come in, and what do? They bring them directly towards direction. Oh, okay, you don't speak the language, we will put you in a lower education. Sorry for the word, because every education is a good education, in the sense of education, but very often it is, okay, you come from there, I put you there immediately. Stamp on it, okay, we put it in a box, it's fixed, bye-bye, you can continue. Third element in that, second element is, I have a man working with me today, he is a doctor, and he came from the University of Casablanca in Morocco. I know this university very well, and they are really qualifying people. We have real good doctors coming from Casablanca. Well, he cannot be a doctor in Belgium, he can just be a nurse. I tell you very frankly, he can just be a nurse. So please, when we are talking about policies, and we are talking about inclusiveness, and we are talking about that we have all to be equal, but we start already to make the distinction when somebody is coming. I tell you, my doctor, my best doctor, is coming from Benin. And he doesn't consider me as a patient, he considers me as a human being, which is far a difference. If I come in the hospital, they will say, oh yes, you have this pathology. And then they will give me some terms, and I will be collapsed in my, oh, what is happening? And then when I see my doctor in Benin, he says, yeah, but you have a lot of stress, and it's related with this, it's related with this, it's related with this. And I'm much at ease. Fourth element, which is very important, please consider projects, considérez les projets des gens qui viennent. Consider the projects coming from those who want to be inclusive in the community. At the end, I hope we will find a film, the movie, we have a small movie. I hope to show what we are able to do together. Some people came in Centrum West. Enti, merhaba fi Centrum West. Kulshi Mazian Hunayak. Mazian, okay. Okay, she was with us in Centrum West. We did have a dialogue which is called the non-verbal dialogue. We were dancing, we were doing games of children, and everybody had his place in Centrum West. Anti Mutafika, Jedan. I asked her if she agrees, and she said yes. Another thing I should like to tell you very clearly is that we have to work also on the home countries. Il faut travailler avec les pays d'origine. I am, since a very long time, in touch with the western part of Africa. So we are talking about Togo, we are talking about Senegal, we are talking about Ivory Coast. If we want that something is changing in the mentality, we have to work with the home countries. And not we as the white men who are going to say there what we are going to do. No, we do it together with the people from here. And we try to co-construct something together with the people. For instance, in Benin, Cotonou, and in Comé, we have a sustainable project. We are working together since 6 years. This has nothing to see with one shot. Okay, I come to do some humanitarian shot, and then bye-bye, and okay. Africa, Cotonou, continue very well, we have done our job. This has no sense. The sense is that we do things together with the home country. Donc le sens, c'est qu'on fait des choses ensemble avec les pays d'origine et que ça reste dans une continuité. And the results are there. You will be probably surprised, but we had a first colleague from Benin coming into Centrum West in order to be a part of our team. Yeah, he is a part of our team. Fortunately, he found a housewife here. He found his wife here. This helped a little bit the process. But I tell you, this is very important. Then a sixth element I should like to tell you also, and then I will be shortening up. A sixth element which I find very important also is that we are not afraid to work under the radar. I don't know if the expression is existing in English. Je pense que de temps en temps, il faut aussi travailler en dessous du radar. And what do I mean with that? We are confronted with situations where we feel that not the sky is the limit, but the law is the limit. And of course, I can understand Stefanos and saying that there needs to be a frame and etc. but we remain human. I give you one concrete example I'm living. Many of the Moroccan refugees, they are not even refugees, many of the Moroccan immigrants coming in Belgium, they don't ask asylum. So what is happening? Very often they are minors. We need to take care, obligatory, until 18 years old, we need to take care of them. And then we say to you, hello, happy birthday, bye-bye. Oh. Yeah, this is what is literally happening. We say to you, hello, happy birthday, bye-bye. Because at the day they become 18, there is nothing anymore for them. And then they come in what we call illegal situations. For me, nobody is illegal. Nobody is illegal. The only thing is that he has no papers, that he has no document to prove that he can stay in the country. But for me, he's not illegal. He is as illegal as people from our country went to Algeria, went to Congo, went to the United States to become the migrants of those countries. So illegal he is. But these are situations I'm confronted with, so very often we cannot just say to you, Samba, au revoir, c'est fini, tu as 18 ans. We cannot say that. We cannot say you are becoming 18, now it's finished, we don't do anything for you, because the law says that we have nothing to do anymore with you. Okay, we are very often in a theoretical way of working together. We are here with how many? I can ask this to my Finnish colleague. We are here how many today?
Today?
More or less, more or less.
We're about a little bit, I would say about 50, 55.
Yeah, 50.
Here, in the room.
No, it's a bit more probably. But okay. What
I'm
I
bad
find
at
so sorry,
mathematics.
what I find so sorry about big conferences that we see each other. You, for instance, I see him once or twice in a year, and then Anna, I see her once and twice in a year, and then also once and twice in a year, and then it's finishing up. I should like to have an appeal for all of you today. And this is always what I try to underscore and to emphasize is please do something together. We have a lot of competences here. I heard that some people have big university degrees. Some others have practical experience. I should like to invite you, especially you, His Excellency, Sir Ambassador, ahlan wa sahlan. I should like that we, out from this group, we build up a real project which makes the difference. And why? And why should I like to do that? Because I see that there is no equality in considering refugees. I have a lot of respect for what is happening in the Ukraine. Don't misunderstand me. But in my country, what is happening is you come from the Ukraine and immediately all doors are getting open. Okay, for me, no problem. But then we have to do the same for the other people coming from Yemen, where there is a war since many, many, many years. Then we have to do the same for people in Sudan, where we even don't know what is happening. Then we have to do the same for other countries, where we even don't have any idea how big and tremendous things are happening. No, it's not about this. I don't want to be here and Rudy, no. The ones we are here for are those people we are working with every day. And I think you are working all together in NGOs or in policies and working on this level. So please let us start up this reflection. What do we do with people coming from different countries and how do we consider them? Because you were talking very clearly about an inclusive community where is two ways integration. I'm getting frost when I hear the word integration, but as you explained me, okay, but how are we going to talk about inclusive community when we talk already about the distinction in people coming from abroad? This is completely tremendous. Well, I think I have said a lot. What I try always to do is to inspire people. I'm not too much into theory. I know these theories, I've been at university as well, but today I'm living with this young man and this young women sitting there, and I'm working with every day with them, and they bring me on the ground. And this is what we need today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That I'm not just talking about theory. Unfortunately, I don't see Basil, and Basil here is my guardian angel.
He's here.
We have a small video. Probably Abdullah has a small video. If we can transfer it to, it should be nice because it shows a little bit what we are doing. And at the end of the morning, we should like to do together something, some activity with our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you very much. So, we have a proposal here from Rudy to say that by the end of the day, maybe we should identify 1 or 2 projects that we all can do together. So I think that's another thing that we can work on and see what comes out of that reflection. And now we're going to hear the voice of youth.
I'm sorry, there is just a small film of 30 seconds, can we?
Oh, is it ready?
Some problem with the transfer.
Okay, if it's ready. I'm not good with technology, so...
Me too, I'm a catastrophe.
Yeah,
I have
so-
to come to Estonia.
So Alejandra, can you give us 2 minutes for the... Oh, here it is. You can watch it? Oh, it's over there. Oh, we don't have the sound. Maybe we can do it again. Start from the beginning. Pardon? Ah oui, oui, oui. Attends. This maybe?
Yeah, it's done, but this system don't want to connect because so many.
Ah, ok. So, ça ne connecte pas avec le système général. Ouais. Working?
It's not yours, yes, it's now. If we in the evening maybe.
Okay, sorry, I think that the technology still cannot respond to our pleas. So we will try to work on that and have this maybe in the afternoon session soon as it is done. So back to you, Alejandra. And you have heard all the presentations. So we would like to ask you, from your perspective, how do you see the situation? What you consider as the difficulties, but also how you would propose to overcome those difficulties from the vantage point of your, your experience and your aspirations. You need the microphone?
Hey guys, very nice to see you. Well, first of all, I will start with saying I have no idea. I do not know how to solve this issue. What I know, it's about youth around the world, because I had the pleasure to travel a lot throughout my life. And I would start out with asking, how many here comes from outside of Estonia? Can you show hands? Nice. Okay. How many here would like to lower CO2 emission? Lower the CO2 emission, reduce it. Yeah? Cool. So how many here flew to come here? We're quite a lot of people. And we can talk a lot about the wrongs in this world, but we must never forget that we are as responsible for building this world as we are for tearing it down. And there's a very interesting thing about the word responsibility, because it's made out of two words: response and ability. The ability to respond to something, which the youth in Denmark, I can feel and I can hear, we have often been very proud of our system. We have been proud because we were quite very inclusive, especially when refugees used to come in. We used to integrate them into a part of society. But what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling myself as well, is the lack of faith of government, which has started from outside the world, but it's also starting inside my own country. That the youth is starting slowly to lose faith in the governing powers. I believe that one of the reasons why this is happening especially so fast, it's because we are very educated people in history, more than ever. We have a lot of academics in Denmark, full of academics. We have no idea what to do with them anymore. And one of the things we can see about history is that it seems to be repeating itself. So of course the youth is losing faith in governing powers, because it seems like we're going in the wrong direction. And in every big change of environment, there is a big change of life. Sorry, I'm very nervous and I have to pee, so... Yes, the one thing I wanted to say. One of the ways that we can see that something is happening in the world is this, definitely with the refugee crisis. When I say this, please keep in mind that I am not against or with anybody in particular. But when that is said, around something, what I read on Google at least, is that 31,000 Syrian refugees have arrived in Denmark since 2015. That number is probably much higher, but something like this. I have never ever seen a Syrian in Denmark. Never. First time I met a Syrian was in Finland when we went last winter. On the other hand, the Ukrainians, also lovely people, and they live right around the corner from where I live, and I see them much more. This shows me that there's a huge difference in the way that people are being treated. And it's not something that I have read up on. I read the numbers on Google, haven't read up on it. This is what we as youth are seeing from our point of views. But what doesn't make sense though is I can go down to the buffet over here and eat avocados and shrimps and things that comes from all around the world. Maybe I can even be in the presence of a fruit that comes from the region where I was born in Ecuador and not even know it. And yet it's like we separate things. We separate them so much that we stop seeing the origin for where they come from. And another thing that I have noticed about all of this refugee crisis and the wars is that we're also separating the wars. There is the war there, there is the war there, there's the war there. We don't see it at one overall change of environment. And what often happens when you change life completely is that there will always come extremes. And with the birth of technology, with the internet, with human rights, with gender rights, all of these things, they make extremes meet, is what I believe at least. And you see a lot of wars suddenly happening over all the world. And I love to look at it like how Tolkien describes it, the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings. He has yes, he's amazing. He has a very, very nice, very descriptive way of explaining evil as sort of big wings that come and sweep the land to darken it. That's how I see all of these wars are affecting us today. They're not separated, they're all connected. This demigration presentation that was there before, we were sitting 3 young people here looking at each other like, yes, yes, this is what we should do. It was an amazing presentation because it is all about stop, what's it called? To separate things. We can't do that anymore. We have said yes to traveling. We are traveling. So we have to respond to this ability of traveling and to continue developing in a sustainable way, of course. And I think that's it for me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandra. It's really very kind of you, very nice. And I see the emotion and I see the commitment.
Passion.
The passion. Yes. So, no, thank you very much. So, actually, I have prepared some questions for our panel members, but I'm going to skip that to give you the opportunity to interact with them. So, the floor is yours. Any question, any comment, anything that you would like any one of our panel members to maybe try to give further information about anything? So, yes. Please introduce yourself to our panel members.
I'm Michael Kavuklis. I'm the president of the House of Europe in Rhodes, Greece. Thank you very much all for your very nice positions. You really pointed out many interesting things. But I would like to state to Alejandra, sorry for that. I want to be provocative, not offensive, about youth. So most young people have the right to vote. And you said very passionately that your generation have lost more than any other the trust and faith to the political structure and how people decide. Why do you don't vote? Most young people doesn't vote in most of the European countries. And you have this power. And if most of the European countries at least have a democracy that is working. We don't have disputed results in the election. So if you actually vote, you can change things, you can change policies. Can you have a comment on that?
Thank you.
I can mostly speak from my own perspective. I have never voted, and that comes from not really knowing enough about the political world. You basically need a master's degree in politics to be able to understand what you're actually voting for. And we see so many crisis happening out of political structures. I think the youth doesn't vote out of fear for making it worse, and out of fear for the people who actually come in power to misuse it. Because we see it again and again and again and again. And it's also happening in Denmark right now. We thought that the lady that's running Denmark right now, Mette, great woman, very great. She's done a lot of great things, but she did not keep her promises. And this, of course, young people lose faith. You can say it's very easy to calculate it. It's just minuses and minuses going down. So now there is no more in the youth budget to actually wanting to engage in the political world. And I do believe that in the future, the governing powers, you can already see it now, they're really, really losing a lot of people. You have countries almost with no people because they all had to flee. So they're governing who? And in the future, I believe that things like NGOs and the civil society is going to have a lot more power. And it's also going to be very chaotic in the beginning because the governing powers that in the old system it has failed in many ways. Certain things run very well, other things doesn't, and they will lose their power eventually.
Thank you.
I want to be a bit opposite also to you, my dear friend from Rhodes. Do we really have a democracy? Do we really have democracy? I give you one example in Belgium. In Belgium, we are obliged to go for elections. Well, whatever you vote, it's okay. But we have, for the moment, most of the ministers who haven't been elected directly. It has been the decision of a party. Where is the democracy in it? No. I see a lot of reactions in Belgium right now, coming to that point, and then I will stop because others have questions. People reacting, but I didn't elect these people. So in Belgium we elect a party, and even in between Brexit, for instance, we have a prime minister, he's coming from a minority party, and because they put together all kinds of coalitions in Belgium, they are favorite of that. We have the Vivaldi, and we have the Swedish, and we have I think very soon we will have the Estonian one. I'm almost sure about it. Or the Egyptian one, I don't know. But where is the democracy? I think this is one of the main issues we have to discuss in the coming years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mihaly, for this provocative question. Well, unfortunately, I won't agree with you, both of you, because, of course, there is a lack of democracy in many countries, but that doesn't mean that we don't have democracy in European countries, first of all. And this is why we want to be part of European Union, because of all this value and, of course, democracy, rule of law. I don't want to be really optimist, telling that everything is nice, and of course I'm not living in a fairy tale. I know that we face problems, but I think that you, the young people, you have to participate in this procedure. You have to be part of politics. So then you have to change. I'm not young, that's why I'm talking to the young people. I'm 54, sorry. So I think that you are the ones that you will make the change in all this. Lack of democracy, okay, let's agree that we do face. All these, the way that the governments are taking decisions, and this is what we want to change also. And I'm sure that you had followed all this debate for the future of Europe, and the first thing that it was mentioned, and I think that this weekend we will have the first, reports from Commission. It's that, of course, we have to work on this lack of democracy. How can we do that? We have the involvement of civil societies, and that's why we are here, but not in a rhetoric and in an argument way of things. We have to work, we have to be part of this. We don't have to decline politics, because then what? Someone mentioned that history is repeated. So then we have to remind what the past, we have to remember why we created European Union. What happened then? Why did we face these two world wars in Europe? So I want to tell you that being out of this framework, it's not really a solution. We have to be part of this framework. We have to work all together for a better world. And I'm sure that we can do it if we collaborate in all the levels, in local levels, regional levels, national levels, European, international levels, between all different, different aspects of politics. But we have to work all together. This is my point of view. Thank you.
Actually, I fully agree with my neighbor, because I'm also, by profession, political scientist. Yeah, I mean, democracy is not perfect, but what do we have as an alternative? A chaos? What do we have as an alternative? And very often, this is my personal view, I also think about, I mean, I'm Estonian, so I lived 20 years abroad. I experienced different countries, also Belgium, Germany, different countries. So if I compare, I'm also very critical about democracy in Estonia, because it has a different face in every country. And then I start thinking, okay, we are all citizens of this country. So somehow the politics has also our face, because it's our contribution. It's what we make out of it when we go to vote, but also of our civil society engagement. There are different methods to participate in a society. But I always believe we also should have a look at ourselves, also be a bit of self-critical. I don't agree at all about politics is too complicated to follow up. I mean, you have to make an effort. If you want to change something in the world, you have to make an effort. We can't be so comfortable. Sorry.
Thank you.
And one more. And we have to say what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, this is my answer. What's Russian? What's the government of Russia? And why do we face this war now? Okay, so just food for thought.
Okay, so we have, I think, we have a question there.
Good afternoon. My name is German. I'm 16, and I wanna touch on a priority topic for me. And today's situation in Ukraine is terrible, and we should help them that Ukraine defend its independence. But I'm born in Estonia, and my native language is Russian. And because of it, I have bullied in society. I think that is terrible. It's not a solved problem. And as was seen in presentation, we're all are the same. And who can help me, or how can I protect myself from that? Thank you.
Oh, we take another question there, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Our ladies and gentlemen, and my name is Mirza Rahim. I am from Tajikistan, but currently living in Lithuania. I think my English not very good, but my colleague can be by translate. Okay?
Okay, go ahead.
You agree me?
Yes, go ahead.
ببین اکرم یوسف مثال اون خانم دیدی که صدا سخن اون وادار کرد که من باید صحبت خدمت بکنم و درد خدمت برای جامعه‌ای که امروز در اروپا قرار داریم برسونم.
The speech of the second lady who is sitting in the panel discussion made me to speak out and to say about the problem I have and I feel today.
ببینید ما در یک کشور دموکراتی زندگی میکنیم ولی ما امروز با چشم دیده ایستادیم که یعنی که حکومتداران مردم اروپایی با کشورهای دیکتاتوری مکاتبه میکنند.
We live today in a democracy in Europe, and I see and I witness that the European countries who are considered to be democratic still they are cooperating with dictatorship regimes.
من مثال عادی میارم گپ زیاد نمیکنم چون ببینید یک نفر بود یک جوان به نام حزب الله شاهولی زاده که او را از اصل دپورت کردن به تاجیکستان. ما رفتیم جامعه شهروندی وقتی که شنیدیم که اونا میخوان دپورت کنن جامعه شهروندی اومد در آسترا و دعوا کرد که شما حق ندارید این جوان را دپورت کنید به تاجیکستان چون که این مخالف قانونی حکومت است و این یا اینو مرگ تهدید میکند یا که زندانی طولانی در زندان.
We had a Tajik citizen in Austria who were asking for asylum. Hizbullah Shawali Zoda. But the Austrian government decided to deport him to back to Tajikistan. And as civil society representatives, we went there and demanded from Austrian government not to do that because the person may face torture or long imprisonment.
من نمیدونم برای چی حکومت‌های اروپایی به سخن‌های جامعه شهروندی گوش نمیدهند.
I don't know why European governments, let's say authorities, did not listen to civil society.
چون وقتی که ما گفتیم که رویش کردن و اون نفر رو 20 years 20 سال زندانی کردن.
At the very end, the guy was deported and he was imprisoned in Tajikistan for 20 years.
مکاتبه خوب است ولی که با گپ ما هم گوش میدن چون که جامعه شهروندی ارتباط یک پول است با حکومتدارانی که در همون کشور زندگی میکنند.
It would be very nice if, for example, European governments or authorities listen also to civil society, let's say representatives who are refugees and who also demand from them, ask for them to do something. So there is, civil society is like a bridge between population and government.
تشکر برای دقتتون.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so who wants to take first? Oh, we have another one? Okay. Now we take your question and we have to close. We're given an opportunity for the panelists to answer.
Hello everybody, my name is Nico and I'm coming from Denmark and working at a refugee center. And actually I asked this question the other day and talked a little bit about it with the ambassador. But what I'm thinking about is, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, my generation. We need to be educated in a lot of things that you said actually, and I really agree. But what I see, you know, in Denmark and all around the world actually, it's not my generation yet that is into the politics. And that generation before me and some of them, they don't engage with people from other cultures as much as my generation do, you know. And they are right now the people that actually can make the changes. But they don't engage as much. And in Denmark, I heard an interview about a politician that was asked if she had ever spent time with a person from another culture, and she said no. But then again, she has a lot of beliefs and a lot of opinions about how the Danish system should look like, whether we should have, you know, immigrants or not. So my question is, and it's not only for you, but it's actually for everybody, what idea you have to, you know, change their mind, because they are the ones who can actually make a change.
Indeed.
And not to oblige, like any ideas how to attract?
Yeah, and actually how to
engage with...
exactly, you know, how to make them, you know, believe as much as our generation do, that, you know, every human are equal, you know? Yes. Yeah. We are all...
And we don't focus to the differences, that we can have dialogue, that we can live together, that we can stay together, even that we can play together. So this is what I want to give you in a rather mid-term and long-term solution. On the other hand, I say, please protect yourself. Yeah. And if you don't feel at ease, if you don't feel safe, I think you need to think about a place where you can be safe, because I find that every human mankind, without exception, has the right to have, I don't say a comfortable life, but at least what we say, a decent life, as we say in French, une vie paisible. This means that you can live at ease where you are. This is a basic right for me, and I'm striving for that every day.
Thank you. All right.
I totally agree with you.
Please try to also go into the other questions.
I will answer only one question, because I also personally I felt addressed by this young man there, because I mean it is basically the same question now. Mm-hmm. Why do we treat different nationalities differently? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the question, of course, is addressed at the national level here in Estonia. And if I personally could give one advice to Estonian government now, is make everything what is possible to give our Russian minority the feeling that you are not less important than the Ukrainians. Even if we feel now we feel with those people who are fleeing this war, and because it's a big tragedy, because we all feel with them. But still, I have so much sympathy for people like this young guy, Russian speaking, who are so well integrated here, and who want to be part of the society. So if I could advise the government, this is what I would say.
Thank you. All right.
Yes, I would answer
please.
Well, thank you very much for this question. It was very enlightening, because I didn't have the time to present all the measures that EU is taking in this cooperation with third countries. But I have to tell you this, that nowadays it's very obvious that there are the sanctions, we have the conditionalities from EU, meaning that when we have countries with dictators and countries where there is no rule of law, then they stop the finance of these countries. So in this, let's say, trying to democratize and to not try to punish these countries because of this regime. But concerning why they don't listen the civil society, this is a big question, and that's why we are here. And as I mentioned in my very quick presentation, is that yes, civil societies, they are part of the new migration pact, but are they really in action? Well, as we realize, they are not really in actions. That means they don't take in consideration their movements and all the statements of the civil society. So this is one very main issue that we have to discuss concerning the new Pact of Migration and the civil society involvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I should like to react on your question, and I should like to give a reaction which I couldn't give because we needed to stop. I have nothing against politics. This is what I wanted to tell. At the beginning, the only thing I should like is that we are more critical about things and that we reflect how politics can be different. I think that the modern politics are different from what polis means in the Greek tradition, and I should like to reflect to that Greek tradition how polis was lived, and that's what I wanted to say about it. Then when I'm coming to your point, it's once again an education. I believe a lot in education, and I believe also in bringing people living in an Ivorian tower back to the ground. Because very often, and it's not a reproach, it's just what I see, very often what is happening, once you are at a certain level, once you are in a certain position, it is not always that easy to be very close to what is happening on basic life. That's the reason why I decided not to be a politician in the sense of political work, but we are doing political work, we are sensibilizing. So I think that we have to talk a lot with our politicians and to bring them to the reality. And this is what we have, for instance, in Flanders. They all know them. We have some politicians interested in what is happening with these young people. Donc je disais qu'en Flandre, on a quelques politiciens qui sont intéressés et qui viennent nous voir. And you see the difference in their way of governing because they are closely related with the basic life of those young people. And please bring your politicians in Denmark, in other countries, bring them close to the reality, the daily reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alejandra?
When it comes to youth and politics, I can sound very rough around the edges when it comes to politics. And I think a lot of young people in Denmark can be very rough around the edges when we talk directly about it. But when we are actually socializing with each other, we do speak lots about social life, political structures. In the end, it's very separated from actually voting. Because, you can ask young people to enter a political structure, but I don't think you have a lot of success with it because it is asking them to enter a structure that doesn't seem to work all the way through. So it's not because politics doesn't work at all, but because the world has changed. For example, a lot of young people, or just people in general, are going to the cities. So local governments needs to be changed as well because there's not a lot of locals to actually make anything up for it. So I think it's stuff like this we need to change. The whole idea of a small elite of people dealing with a mass crowd is also, sorry to say it so roughly, but it's absurd. It doesn't work in the long run. We're becoming more and more people, but we're still a tiny, small handful of, again, elite people that keeps running the political world. So one of my suggestions was to remove some of the glamour from the politicians in the end. In Denmark, you earn a lot of money by being a politician, and we have so many different cases with politicians doing all kind of silly stuff with money and you know, not really living up to their promises, and this is what is reflecting on the youth. We would love to be more into politics, but not how it stands today. It needs to be updated.
Thank you. We have time for one question, so I'm going to ask you please to make it in less than 15 seconds, so we can have 4 minutes for the panel to answer it.
Thank you so much. No, for me, we talked about the hospitality that the Ukrainian refugees are facing, but unfortunately it's not the case for all the people that are fleeing even from Ukraine itself, the same war that we are talking about. We not want to go back to 2015 and 16. So I'm working also these days with Ukrainian refugee and people who fleeing from Ukraine, and it's so obvious how the people, like what we look only the paper that these people have. So like there are a lot of people who've been living, studying, spending their whole life in Ukraine, but they don't Ukrainian citizens, so they've been treated totally different, although that they are running from the same war. So this is, I think, is really like, are we having problem with the, basically, is it a migrants crisis or a discrimination crisis that came so obvious, and a human rights crisis in Europe? And for me, just, sorry, one comment about the question about the minorities in general. I think it's not only the role for him to find a place that fits him. I think it's the role of all of us to stand up with him and make the space for him and for all the people like him to be not only just, okay, I'm anti-discrimination and sitting back. We all have to be active role and play active role with the anti-discrimination and stand up and speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you only have 3 minutes now.
Yeah. Well, very quick, I have to answer that, of course, with my Ukrainian migration crisis, I realized that many things haven't changed in the migration policy of EU and of some member states. And that's why I was referring to the Syrian crisis, because then we face really not a very friendly face from EU. But this discrimination, it's a part of what we have to do in the new pact of asylum and migration, meaning that we don't need an a la carte migration policy. Okay, this is a problem. So this is why we have to have a common policy of migration and asylum. This is the point, and this is what we have to, all the member states have to decide. And as you do know, there are member states that they refuse to accept many articles of the new pact. And this is a problem. So let's pray and let's hope that things will change and that we will have a common migration policy with no discrimination in that level.
Thank you. Jana, would you like to say something? Because I think, yes, yeah.
Because it was an EU question, if you want so. So I fully agree. So we see it the same way, and the Commission has clearly recommended and told member states to implement the temporary protection directive as to protect also those other country nationals fleeing from Ukraine. This is very clear. So we are in line with the UN Refugees Agency with that. What we observe, unfortunately, that member states, even in Estonia, they don't pay attention. So they are often trying to do the minimum, because, so I fully agree with that point.
Thank you. Okay. Last comment?
No, may I propose something completely else? Yeah, we have some young people, and they are very. No, they will go and move. They should like to let you move a little bit. Is it possible? Is that possible? So please, guys, stand up. We are going to dance and improvise. Well,
but before we stand up, I think I would like to ask you to give a big hand of applause to our panelists, and we thank them for their contribution.
Possible? It's possible? Yeah. 1 minute of dancing and moving on some music. They can do it. Thank you very much.
And after you dance, you can go for coffee.
Yeah.
Alors, on y va? On y va? Ah, Alors, la technologie et moi, on est totalement séparés. Il faut leur demander. They want to know how they can play their music.